It's raining so much and there's so many noises, so if the pitter patter of rain bothers you, I'm really sorry. It's just that I can't do this in my house with a 10-month-old. Hi, I'm Rosie, and if you haven't been following me on Instagram, I for a number of years have been posting recipes, money saving ideas about how to make your food budget stretch. It's not exactly the easiest. I'd say it's probably one of the hardest times I've seen to try and make your food budget go further. I remember the first recession. I remember companies actually kind of combating each other, and I know we've had Brexit, I'm not going to go into that, but I feel like we're in a place where to buy food is very tricky, and every time you go to the supermarket everything changes in price and it's becoming a bit of a minefield. If you're finding yourself in a situation where £10 is your budget, that's what you have for the week, and you need to make some meals out of that, I'm trying my best to put together this series. I'm going to try and do it as best I can and see if I can give you some ideas or some tips to make it work. Now, I'm not saying that it's doable and it's going to be the sexiest, exciting food you'll ever have. It's just about making something that's sustainable and can allow you to function, because without food you can't function, and it's very unfair that it's now something that's seen as like a privilege rather than you know, something we're all entitled to. And the fact that the prices have increased the way they have, and the amount of different companies outside of food that are just reaping the profits and everything, it's so upsetting. And if I can do something that means that I can help someone in any way, then that's what I'm going to try and do. So I'm definitely not a Tory. I'm not someone who's telling you you're doing something wrong if you're not paying this much for your food. To achieve this, so there's so many noises. To achieve this, I've had to plan meticulously. I had to go to this shop initially, take pictures of all of the food because not all the food's online. I then made a list of all of the items that I had and then tried to make a menu out of that. And I'm just about seeing if that can stretch to my budget. Semi-successful. I got the majority of items, some I still need to get. I have the privilege of a car, the time, and someone looking after my son to be able to go to another co-op to enable me to get this stuff. So I'll go on there to make sure that I do have everything to make this correct. So all the things that are essential that we're told that we should look for, they're the range that are seeing the price increases. Anyway, I'm gonna go and get those items, and then I'll be able to put things together. So I got everything. Sorry about the rain again, it's just going to be a common theme for this bit. I got everything, but it was overpriced, and that's really deflated me. That I've tried my best to keep my budget in check, and we are over by I think about 20p, which doesn't sound like a lot to some people, but those increases in prices do make a difference. And that's my husband, and I'm just trying my best to do something that you can get to a tenner. Close to a 10 is fine. I'm just gonna have to accept this as maybe a loss, but hopefully with what I make it'll be worth it. Editing Rose here. Now you're probably thinking, why didn't you just go for yellow stickers? Of course you could have made it stretch with £10 if you had just bought some reduced items. The point of this is I want to make things that if you go into your co-op in Yarmouth or Carlisle, then you can get the same things. That's the hope. Whereas if I'm just buying things reduced, then there's no point of making this, because then it doesn't work for everyone. So that's why you won't be seeing any yellow stickers in this. But one thing to also bear in mind is that Co-op do some great offers via their app as well for money off. That's also tailored to what you buy. So that's something I won't be featuring this, but it's definitely worth looking out for. Okay, so we are at many hours after the clip you just saw, because my son wouldn't go to sleep for like 2 hours, and I've given up on all personal hygiene. I'll basically show you and explain. 10 pack of eggs, 2 bananas, 2 potatoes, an onion, tin of soup, tin of beans, tin of kidney beans, some sliced white bread, frozen mixed veggies, long life milk, mozzarella, long grain white rice, porridge oats, and some frozen fruit. So when you go to a co-op, you're not really going to get a lot of the fresh stuff, as you can see here, because unfortunately they don't tend to do a lot of things by weight other than onions, potatoes, bananas, maybe the odd apple if you're lucky. It depends on your store. So these are the things I managed to get, And I was like thinking about tin potatoes, but it was actually more expensive than getting the fresh kind, and it gave me a bit of options for me to go for some different things. But most of your value range is gone. It just doesn't exist. I was so lucky to find these in the co-ops I went to, because honestly it's starting to evaporate, and that's the kind of stuff that the Conservatives are telling you to buy to keep your costs down, and it's literally going. Is this something that you think you could do a better job at? I don't know. So I have just put everything from this bag into these tubs. So it means I look like the Joker. So it means that I can now pull ingredients for each dish I've got planned, but it took a long time, very painstaking, still cheaper than the tins and still cheaper than fresh, and probably just as good for you, but yeah, quite a lot back. Well, it's the next day and I have cooked everything and come to my conclusion about whether it's possible to stretch a tenner at the co-op. I have my baby boy sleeping away, so let's see how long that lasts for. I devised a plan, and it meant that you could have breakfast, lunch, dinner, maybe a couple of snacks with the things I got. Be very, very repetitive and lots of similar flavours. So here are my breakfast options. As you can see, there's a breadth of things that basically contain oats and berries, but I wanted to make it a little bit varied so you could pick one of them or maybe all of them. It depends if you're someone who likes to have something different every day or you are comforted by the same thing. So we'll start with the berry compote because we'll be using that for a few different things. It's really simple, just using some of our frozen berries in the pan and putting a decent spoonful of sugar in there. I just follow your heart with this one. It depends how sweet you know you'd like the berries to the tartness. A little bit of lemon juice is great as well, but we're working with what we've got. So we'll start with the porridge. So all I found I needed was about half a cup of oats and then 1.5 cups of water, and you just cook that down in the pan for about 15 minutes until you get the right texture. I then added a dash of my milk, a little bit of sugar and my berry compote. You can absolutely have this every day and it's a perfectly great breakfast, really good for you and very, very cheap and sustainable. Let's move on to the banana pancakes. To make one portion, you'll be using half a banana mashed, a quarter cup of milk, and then you stir that together. Then you add your egg yolk and keep your whites separate. Then grind some oats. You can keep them whole if you don't have a means of grinding them. Add a quarter cup to the mix and give it a good stir. Add the egg white and just very gently fold it in. For some reason I've found that that's the best way to get good aeration into your pancakes if you don't have any raising agents available. Then in a pan you're going to be frying them and do the old pancake thing. Frying them until they're brown on one side, flipping them, and you're good to go. This worked perfectly with the berry compote, but as I say, whatever toppings you have available to you will work great, and then you can batch cook this for the rest of the week and have a lovely pancake breakfast every day. Or you could have it as a dessert, depends, it's really up to you. The next breakfast I did actually have to make the night before, which is the overnight oats. If you're on the go, it's a really easy way of getting breakfast down you, but not having to stand over a stove if you don't have the time for things like porridge or making something like pancakes. You'll be getting your berries and mashing them with a fork in a Tupperware container or something you'll be taking away with you. Then you'll be adding 1/3 of a cup of oats and 2/3 of a cup of milk. Then that just goes in the fridge and it's ready to eat the next morning. You can obviously put more berries, some bananas on top. Again, any toppings or things that you feel would go well. Coconut would be amazing, but as a base, this works just fine. Finally, a smoothie. This can be something you don't necessarily have to have a blender for. If you have an immersion blender, this can work just as well. To make this, you need a handful of your berries. Also add half your banana. You can grind some of your flour down, you can keep it whole, it's going to go back in the blender anyway. You can see from my measurements, I just measured with my heart. Again, putting things like honey or any flavour enhancements would be amazing, but this is perfectly fine on its own. You put that in your blender until fully incorporated and you can enjoy. You could also just have it all ready in its container, put that in the fridge and then blitz it just before you head out the door so that you don't have to bother measuring anything, just get ahead of the game. I'm pretty happy with my breakfast options and was really happy to see that they did oats at fairly decent price compared to other items in store. So we're going to move on to lunch, which I'm not going to lie is a bit of a cop-out in terms of this. Because I was planning to do dinners and things, I was trying to incorporate all these other ingredients. Didn't really give it too much thought, I'm not going to lie. I basically just made it that if you're going to have something to do with oats, you're going to be using the bread and just having variations of like eggy bread, scrambled egg, fried egg, boiled egg and soldiers, that kind of thing. You know what eggs are. I wasn't gonna cook a load of eggs to show you because you know what an egg looks like and you know what it looks like cooked.
Editing Rose now, trying to be really quiet. I know that a frittata recipe would have been great as well, so just saying that a frittata is also on the menu, but it's eggs and your choice of filling, so you know what, I'm not telling you what you can do, it's eggs, and however you want to do them. You could use half the onion that I have over as part of the other recipe as well. That's an option too, just saying.
However, some of my dinner options might actually work out as good lunch options if you are at work, so maybe it's something you could swap and alternate. Now the dinners. So as I separated all my veggies, I did do myself a favour when it came to getting my meals prepped. I could draw out each ingredient rather than having to just make do with the fact that it was a veg mix, and I could do different kinds of things with it. So the first thing I made was a pea and corn fritter. This is something that actually I think kids would really like. I gave it to my baby son and he really enjoyed it, as well as my other son, my husband, he really liked it as well. To make this, you'll need some corn and some peas. I defrosted them slightly in the microwave. That just helped take away a little bit of water. I then added 1 egg, some blended oats, and the same amount of milk. If not making it for a child, add salt, pepper, and if you have any other seasonings or herbs available to you, that's a great time to use them. Heat your pan with oil and then put in a couple of dollops of your fritter mixture. Allow that to fry until crispy on each side. It took about 6 minutes. I've teamed it with a fried egg, which I think would make a great addition. It was really hard picking which tinned items I'd go for because I was thinking about just getting a passata and doing an all-round tomato sauce, but I didn't know whether that would be just boring or whether that's something I could use for another supermarket another time. Because in order to make a sauce I would need garlic and onion and everything, and I felt going for a soup that already carried those ingredients made more sense. So my bean soup is technically 2 portions in 1 can, but only about 120 calories, which is not enough to sustain anyone, not even my 10-month-old son. So in order to bulk it out and to add more carbs and calories to it, I decided to make 1 into a stew and 1 into a rice bake. To make the stew, I added half my can of soup, half my can of kidney beans, about 1/3 of a cup of rice, some water just to loosen it all, and I allowed that to simmer for about 15 minutes. I then added some green beans because I felt that would work really well with it, and cracked an egg and poached it on top. That was my mum's idea. Just another way to add protein. And I then put the lid on and just let that steam until I felt like it was cooked. I tend to overcook eggs, so it was very overcooked. But it did the job, and you can do it obviously for less time, and that would be enough time for your veggies to cook in the dish as well. Like I say, any additional seasoning would be amazing, or spices. I managed to make about enough for 2 portions just doing that. My battery died and it's got even sunnier, so I'm just gonna have to go as quickly as I can. But anyway, that's the 2 options you can do with the soup. You can also just have soup. You don't have to like bulk it out with anything particular. One dish I forgot to film, but is on my list, is egg fried rice. Because of the variation of veggies available, it would be the perfect way to cook them. The next one is my burgers. So they're not technically my burgers, but I've put a little twist and a little spin on them. Jack Monroe years ago did the 10p burger, which was featured in her book, A Girl Called Jack. Jack made this burger recipe and has since admitted that it would not be possible to make them for the price that they paid for them. It still felt like an appropriate meal to make. So to make this, I used the other half of my tin of kidney beans and I cooked that in some water for about 5 minutes just to soften them, and I also defrosted some of my carrot and mashed that down. I then added my kidney beans to my carrot with the finely diced onion as well, and a little bit of my ground oats just to make everything bind a bit easier. Obviously spices are amazing, whatever you have available is fantastic. I added some cayenne pepper, but if you don't have it and just salt and pepper, then that will do. So So this mix made about 3 burgers, and this is where my little twist came in. I decided to use some of my mozzarella and stuff my burgers with the cheese. Made a patty, put some cubes of mozzarella in, and then patted it over the top to make sure the cheese wouldn't leak. It still did. It's still gonna leak, but it's, you know, so it wasn't already on the outside. Pan-seared them first and then put them in the oven for an additional 10 minutes whilst I was cooking my chips. And this depends what you have available, whether you want to get this, by the way, the worst bread. It's so dry. And if you have like a little bit of a head of onion over, don't throw that away. That could definitely make some kind of onion relish. All you need to do is put a little bit of sugar in a pan with oil with your diced onion and just cook it for as slow and low as you can, and it makes a beautifully gorgeous sweet relish for the outside. So I just made some simple wedges, cooked them in the oven, and cooked some peas in the microwave. This was a really easy dinner to make. Yielded about 3 patties, so I could easily use one of those patties for a lunch as well. So this is what I meant about my lunches. I just kind of broadly said eggs, but you can use some of the portions you made for your dinner as part of your lunch as well. Here's my bake. Should have done this whole thing as a voiceover. I'm so stupid. Put the half a tin of soup in there with some water, my peas and carrots, and a cup of rice. Stirred the whole thing through and transferred it all to a baking dish, where I then topped it with the rest of my mozzarella, but I patted it with some paper towel to make it a bit dry. Baked it in the oven for about 20 minutes until it was all crispy and gooey, and made about 2 portions. So the question is it possible to stretch your tenner and eat for a week at your local co-op? Yes and no. No, because I technically went over a little bit, but I didn't use all of my oats and my rice. So if you were to do this 2 weeks in a row, then technically it would be £10. I didn't use everything, and every additional item you could buy, you could get something new the next week. So while you've got carrots, you could then get some stock. So you can make a carrot soup for the next week. You could get some chicken legs that are £1.90 and team that with your rice dishes. So there are ways you can kind of say, yes, you can do this for £10 a week, but that's not to say this is the most exciting, varied diet you can make. The co-op don't ever profess that they are giving the best value option. They're mainly the most convenient. It also doesn't include any hygiene products, bathroom or cleaning or anything like that. You know, God forbid you need to keep a clean house or clean up after yourself within that budget. Also things like tin foil or places to store your food if you do have leftovers, and having a variation of, you know, like I'm so fortunate. I have a blender, I have my oven, my fridge, my freezer. If you're in a position where you don't have an air fryer or other gadgets, then, you know, I'm not saying you're stuck, but it makes things very limiting. It really bothers me when you do watch things and it's £1 per portion, but it be neglecting the fact that they have a fully stocked spice rack or a variation of herbs or spices or other cupboard staples, because that's not the case for everyone. And that's why I did find this hard, just because I was not presuming everyone has flour in their cupboard or caster sugar or a block of butter, because that might not be available. Like I say, I'm going to write everything up, and there at one point will be a link for you to be able to follow comprehensively what I made and what I did with everything. Just so you know, if £10 is what's available to you, it's not your fault. The system isn't working with people, it's working with business at the moment. So they're the ones that are kind of having the best deal at the moment. I hope everyone knows this comes from a good place. I'm very much not a Tory, and I'm not here to tell you that yes, you can eat for this much, aren't you stupid, you can have this and that. It's not about that. But I want to give a bit of dignity back to a situation that is leaving everyone feeling trapped. When I've been in this position myself, I didn't have the capacity to be thinking about these things. And just to get to the point of thinking of this variation of ingredients, it took planning. It took me sitting down and really having a good think about whether I should get the crushed peanuts because they're 75p and they're a good snack and a source of protein, but what can I do with it? Can I make that into a butter? Can people do that at home? This is where my brain was at to put this together. So please don't think that this comes from a bad place or a judgmental place at all. I do not judge anyone for finding themselves in a situation where £10 is all they have in their pocket. Believe me, I do not. I really am not in that place. But I want to act as a tool that people can use so that if they find themselves in this situation, there is hope and there is alternatives to not eating. I do not want people to not eat, and I don't want people to skip meals. that is not what I want people to do. You can't function without food, and food is life. And I don't want to get emotional about it, but if this helps in any way, if one person watches this and they find one recipe that resonates with them and that works, then I feel like I've done my job. I'm going to be doing more in this series, and I'm going to be starting with the most expensive places to shop. Because yeah, of course I can go to Lidl and Aldi, but are they the most cost effective? What if I get independent? Is that the most cost effective too? So I hope you'd like to join me on this series that I'm putting together. I'm trying to get it out every 2 weeks, but obviously doing it around a child is what it is, and putting together the menus and getting it done, but I will try my best. I would really appreciate it if you click the subscribe to follow along on what I'm doing, and also what I've been buying day to day and that kind of thing. But just let me know. I would really appreciate your feedback and anything you have to say. But thank you so much for watching. Thanks, bye!